just growing. It's just growing pains.
What's up, guys? Episode 800 here. No,
Yeah, seriously. It's been a while since we've been able to get together.
Yes, it has. Lots changed.
You're a dad now, officially. Baby's on the
Officially
outside.
a child on the outside.
Yeah.
I guess it's still a baby on the inside. Just
Yeah.
on the outside this time. That's great.
And work.
Yep. Started working a crazy job. Crazy situation.
Jeez, man, that's a lot of travel time.
Hell yeah. And then it's crazy because, so what ends up happening is, if I'm not asleep by 8 p.m., I get home at 6. If I'm not asleep by 8 p.m., it's like, you're not getting 8 hours.
Dang.
And then everything after that is like, you're
Yeah.
losing hours, which
Yeah.
happens every single night
Yeah.
because it's
And
impossible.
what about trying something like a non-addictive sleeping pill, or just working out till you pass out, like just
there's that, but everything takes time.
Yeah.
So it's like by the time I get home, I hold my baby, eat dinner, take a shower. I got like 12 minutes till I need to go to sleep, and I can do it. It's all really an excuse, but it just ends up not happening.
That's the thing. Like, when you were in high school and you thought, oh, I gotta read this stupid book.
Oh my!
Yeah.
And all the parents say that too, where you're just like, oh, you think this is hard?
Yeah,
Like,
wait till you
this is
go-
the easiest part of your life. Like,
And at the time you're like,
Yeah.
stupid old people.
Seriously.
You don't even know what you're talking about.
Seriously.
And now you're like, oh, I'd give anything to go back. I'd give
For
anything
real.
to go back.
For sure.
To be able to go back to 5th grade and start over, and knowing what I know now.
I'd be so raw at wrestling.
Oh man, yeah, everything.
For
Everything.
sure. I would have definitely, by 5th grade, been like, quit that football shit. You're
Yeah.
never going to grow tall enough. Like, you're wasting your time.
Yeah, and then that 12 minutes, you start to. It's like a metaphor for life, man. Where you don't have as much time as you think. No one does. No one has as much time as they think. And now you're the busy man. You're the man who's busy. And look, you're taking time to come do this, to get together, to meet up, and that's how all of life is going to be. No matter what. Like, again, my job's pretty cake. I'm done by 3. I have really good kids, but I still gotta manage my time. Like, I'm on a phone call here, and then I'm meeting with you, and then I'm at home with my kids, and the better you get at doing that now, the easier it gets later. So that, you'll get more than the light switch thing. You have to, just leave it in.
That, too, is a metaphor for life.
Yeah.
Sometimes it gets dark.
Yeah. Sometimes.
Are you going to get up and move? Make it light again? Or No, it's funny, though, because I was thinking of another... it's kind of off of what we've talked about previous podcasts, but a different aspect of it. So the saying of, like, time is money, right?
Yeah.
Which, of course, there's stuff in that, but an analogy we were using with money is, like, you either make a plan for it, and, like, you anticipate and you do what you want with your money, or the universe will find a way to spend that money regardless of what you're doing. And I think that time is just, like, the exact same situation.
Yes.
Because, and even this week, because it's been, like the 3rd week that I've done this, and it's just like, I'm just now coming to the point of, like, I need a routine and stick to it, because it's like, I can tell myself I need to be asleep by 8, and then I only have time for this, and that, but if you don't plan it and, like, make a conscious effort the whole time throughout it, that time gets eaten up other places.
Yep.
What ends up happening, it's 8 o'clock, and I took a shower, but I haven't eaten.
Yep.
You know what I mean? I'm just, like, laying there with my brand new baby, and it's like, time just gets eaten up. And it's, my daughter was born at 12:27 a.m., so she's just, like, up at nights, sleeps during the day. And my dad said before, when she was still an inside baby, my dad was like, because I don't know what it was, I would say I'm tired or whatever it is, and he's like, a baby's not going to care if you're tired. And it's like, it's the same thing as anything else your parent tells you. It's like, you're just like, yeah, like whatever. But it's
bro.
like, no, seriously. It was my mom, she came over last night, and she said, and she's had 4 children, 4 boys, dealt with twins, so it's like veteran in the game for sure. And so she's like, oh, I'm going to come over and help so you guys can get some sleep. And then I have to wake up at 4. She comes in the room by 3. It is like, I can't get her to stop crying. And so it's like, the veteran in the game's like,
I'm out.
gonna have to give her to mom. Like, she got the food bags. Like,
Yeah.
and, yeah.
Man,
Yeah,
it's
it's
the
rough.
hardest, worst, best thing ever.
Seriously.
It's just, yeah. And that's, you know, that's one of, and then you start thinking like, oh my God, I did this to my parents. I can't believe they didn't kill me. Like as dark as it sounds, you're like, okay, yes, shaken baby syndrome, bad, that's terrible.
Seriously.
But there's a moment where you're like, just fucking dumb, I'm out, I'm done. And because you have never been so frustrated.
Mm-hmm.
Like at the end of your wits.
Yeah.
You're literally like, I got nothing.
That's something that is just pure, just never done anything wrong
Right.
in her entire life.
Right.
Like,
Yeah.
it's just being a baby. Like, what can you...
Mhm.
No, and it's funny you said that because because we spent 24 hours in the hospital or whatever.
Yeah.
Okay, so the whole birthing experience, craziest thing
Yeah.
ever. My girl was a savage, was like
Nice.
no pain pills. No
Dang.
nothing. And yeah, it was... I've never heard this. I couldn't even think the sound could come out of such a small person, but it's like seriously primal, you
Yeah.
know, like it
Yeah.
sounds crazy.
Imagine 10,000 years ago in the jungle, in the dirt, and the tigers and freaking
And then
wolves.
squat and deliver your own baby.
Yeah.
No, and it was funny because we have a doula, and
Yeah.
do you know what that is?
Yeah.
She was super awesome.
Nice.
I was super like, what is that called? Skeptical
Yeah,
before.
yeah.
But she was doing it for free, so I'm like,
Yeah,
I
yeah,
can't really
yeah.
complain that
Yeah,
much,
yeah,
you know.
yeah.
And she's like been through the process, and my girl liked her, so I was like, whatever, you know.
Yeah.
Turned out like the best thing ever. Like she
That's
just
cool.
knew everything to do, and so we had a birthing plan beforehand, and it's crazy how like things will change inside of 24 hours. Because the birthing plan, it's like you're still being a kid about it because a kid has not arrived yet, you know. So it's like a bunch of things you check off, like, you know, what shots are you giving when they're born, like how you want the delivery to go. So there was like me cutting the umbilical cord. If I wanted to deliver my own baby, I was like, what? Like, that's crazy. And then
there's a moment where you're like, wait, what am I paying you for?
Yeah. Yeah, no, she doesn't do any of that.
I know.
Well, because there's the midwives too.
Right.
And so that's what we opted to do. Like, we didn't want doctors.
Okay.
Because it's a natural birth, so it's
Yeah.
like, you know. But what's it called? And she decided to be in a pool
Yeah.
to give birth, so it was just a crazy experience. And then with the birthing plan, it's like, do you want to be in the water with her or stuff like that? And before, I'm like, this is crazy. I was like overwhelmed, but then like once it was happening and she was clearly giving birth soon, it's like I just like laser focused in.
Yeah.
Everything like made sense, and I
Yeah.
was just like telling the doctor like, so am I delivering this baby or like, you know what I mean?
What ended up happening? You delivered it.
What ended up happening was I got in the pool, and it's like not the cleanest pool after.
Yeah. That's just a
But it's
baby
like-
comes out, not just a baby. There's all kinds.
there's
You're
a
like,
lot. Yeah, it's like touching my shoulder.
Yeah,
and
yeah.
Just like,
yeah.
don't want to like. I'm sweating because it's like hot
Yeah.
water, but I'm like, don't want to pull my hand out and wipe my
Yeah,
head. But what's it called? So what ended up happening was like, because it's a circle shape,
Yeah.
but it's like, it's kind of like material, so there's not solid around it,
Yeah.
but then there's like a ring or whatever.
Right.
So it's like she liked the pool, and then the bottom's like foam, so that's comfortable, but she couldn't like lay or anything like that. Her options were like being on her knees
Right.
or like sitting back, but she didn't really have that wall
Right,
comfortably.
right.
But like, I've been preparing for this,
Yeah.
you know, eating enough to be the perfect human
Yeah,
couch.
yeah.
And so she just basically held on to me the whole time.
Nice. Okay.
So she could sit. But it was like nuts because she's like been up for 30 something hours.
Jeez.
And like giving birth. But she's getting to the point where she'll like try to push.
Yeah.
And she just wanted the baby to come out. So
Right.
she's like just trying to push. And then I guess the baby would like, head would kind of come out and then like go
Yeah.
back in, and she's like losing it, like, somebody grab the baby. Like, you know what I mean? Like, get this baby out of me. And so the whole time I'm just sitting there like smooth talking to her,
Yeah.
right in the ear, like right in her ears, just like telling her, you know, like that she's gonna be here, she's about to be here, she's gonna be good.
Yeah.
And I would tell her, I was like, you have to get the strength to be able to push. So as soon as you're done pushing, you gotta relax, you know what I mean? And it got super angelic because she's like pushing as hard as she can, having these crazy primal sounds, and then she's like, has no fight left in her, so where she's just like literally sleeping in the middle of the, and I'm just like holding her up, like trying to give her that like 8 minutes of rest until the next contraction or whatever. And it got nuts, but yeah, by the end of it, I don't know. It changes you to realize like, okay, this is, I don't know. If you don't have it figured out, like it answers a lot of questions. But what I got into this whole story of it is like, oh yeah, and our baby is like perfect. Didn't even cry when she came out. She was just amazing. We were actually like worried because she's like, we're like, what is going on? And they're like, that happens with water babies. I'm like, you guys should have told us it's like your water. But nah, she's just so adorable. She looks just like me. She's like my twin. But what's it called? So after the 24 hours that they hold you, whatever, they have you go, but they go through a whole bunch of testing, and then they even have like an advice nurse come and sit down with you and tell you about what is that called? Postpartum depression. Mm-hmm. And we were both like, are you insane? You know what I mean? Like, what do you mean there's like these parents that just detach from this human being they just created? And it doesn't happen for me and my girl because our baby's so perfect, but I get what you're saying as far as like, you can understand those crazy people because it'll be like 3 a.m. and you are holding your baby that's just wailing and you've tried everything. You get food, you check the diaper, you're like, what? She might just not like the position you're in, her hands are cold, but you don't, you know what I mean? Like, you don't even know. So for a second there, you're like, it's almost like white noise, her screaming, you're just like, zone out of it for a second, then you're like, okay, I gotta lock back in.
Yeah, that's exactly, you'll feel your brain detach.
Yeah, exactly.
And you're like, what? And especially this idea of, you know, I think of the angel devil thing and that devil voice that goes like, you should know what to do. You're her father, you're her dad, you should know what to do. And you gotta battle that. You gotta be like, no, that's not true. Like, that's my first kid. I've never raised a kid before. And even if I did have another kid, each kid is different. So you have to fight that. Because that's where I think a lot of problems come from, is this idea that, okay, well, I'm just gonna pretend like I know what I'm doing, rather than going, no, I don't know what I'm doing. I'm doing the best I can. I'm doing the best I can. That's it. Because the other one breeds anger, because you transfer it very, very quickly. You're going, look, I'm doing everything I can think of for you. This isn't making you happy. So it's definitely not me, so it must be you. Instead of going, well, no, I don't know everything. I'm trying the best I can. And this is how it is when you have a baby. This is just the nature of having a baby. Babies cry. They don't consciously think, I'm trying to ruin your night. They don't even know why they're upset. So, I mean, I think they have no clue why they're upset. And so you've got to give yourself some grace and mercy, and it's just the way it is.
Yeah, and I mean, it's just so crazy how you go from like, they're so quick too. It's like not even worth the edit. People, this is the deep dark secrets of our podcast. But what's it called? I mean, the smallest things that you wouldn't even think about, but it just like completely transforms of like how aware you have to be of like a human being's feces and like peas, and you gotta count them and look at what color it is, and like
I'll tell you right now, you're gonna remember this maybe 2-3 years from now. You are never gonna be so happy as when she poops in a toilet on her own. Like, you're never gonna be so happy to see a piece of poo in a toilet. It's like her birth, it's a religious experience.
Because you're just like,
you're just like, oh, thank you, Lord.
That's all funny, because we were talking about me and my mom and my dad. I was making jokes though last night, talking about, you know, because I like to mess with her. She'll make like a sound, like this weird squeak or whatever. I'm like, Dad, you know, gotta get them young. But we're talking about, you know, can't wait till she has her first word. But it's like by her 700th word, you're like, couldn't I have had a couple more months?
Every age has something great about it. There's something, this is hard with the crying, but when they're 2 and they're pulling stuff down and just trashing your house, and you're just worried all the time about them choking to death, or, you know, at 7 years old, you're worried about them making friends and having good and learning, and then 17, you're worried about them doing drugs and having sex and just being crazy. So like every age has something good and bad about them, and I've appreciated every age. It's been cool at every step of the way for me. Again, I've had friends who are like, no, I didn't like them when they were babies. I like them better now. And I'm like, it's been cool all the way through for me, because I think if you're aware, like, this will never happen again. She'll never have an October the 12th again, 2018. Like, that, once today's done, so even if it's only an hour of hanging out with your baby, she never gets that again. So, it's worth it.
It's definitely crazy to me because it's like, and another thing I was talking to my girl about last night is like, we saw her when she was a 2-year-old. You know what I mean? And it's like, how much she's grown from a 2-year-old to a month is like it's nuts. So I can only imagine.
Yeah.
Yeah, but yeah, it's a crazy experience all around. And it's funny. There's things from previous podcasts. This is how I know it'll help people with our podcast. Is like how much it'll help me, because there's things where me and Bree will really hold on to, of like, remember what Sanchez said about like the parenting classes, and this also the story of which, and it still happens and it sucks, but it's cool because we have a better understanding of like, if I get home and I'm hella tired and then it's like the house is like trash, I have no clothes, so on top of the things I have to do 2 hours, I gotta wash the clothes I'm already wearing. But so then it's like you want to blame this other person when you think they're not doing anything, but then she'll be like, all right, I have to go to the bathroom because I've been holding it all day. So here, you take the baby, and then she will not stop crying until she gets her food. So it's like you're sitting there the whole time with her crying. And I'm like, okay, I get it.
Yeah, 7 minutes of this is torture.
Yeah. And then it's the same thing of like, or background where I'm doing all these things and working like crazy, but then Bree's like, oh, you're not holding your baby enough. When I'm like, you do realize I could do everything else I do every day out in Fresno, except for come hold my baby. Like, I don't care if it's 30 seconds. I'm like, I drove all this time just to hold the baby for 30 seconds.
Yeah.
So, and so it's cool, like, because I really, even with like my parents, my closest friends, like anybody, you don't have enough communication where even when you're angry, you can articulate where the person's like, oh, okay, I didn't think of that, I didn't get that part. So, and that's just what's been happening, I'll be like, oh, what have you been doing all day? And then she hands me the baby to go to the bathroom. I'm like, okay, that's a full-time gig by itself. Or the fact that she's like, oh yeah, you really can take a shower, clean your clothes, like do all these things out in Fresno. The only thing you can't is see your baby. So
Right.
we get in little spats, but
Yeah, of course.
I wouldn't want to do it with anybody else.
And that's another thing is, this is the highest stress test to your relationship you're going to have. This is it. This is as bad as... Now, again, I think there's problems later on of other things, but this is the highest stress test, and you gotta... it's one of those things where you almost have to laugh. You almost have to be like, I'm not going anywhere. Like, I don't know. So we can keep fighting, but
For real.
I'm not going anywhere, and I love you, and you're a dummy. And that's it.
That's it.
That's all there is to it.
For real.
And I think that helps a lot, being able to just laugh in the middle of a fight, to be able to just... And, by the way, having an outlet for you, whether that's working out or taking a walk or whatever the thing is, you got to have something where you get to just be, whether it's a punching bag or whatever, just something where you get to be frustrated and be... Because then that stuff will leak out, or again, people turn it internally, and that's where high blood pressure and heart problems come from, and so, or one of the places it comes from. So having an outlet is important.
And I agree with that, like 10,000%. And it's like, I try to convey this to like my dad and everybody, and I feel like I'm gonna keep saying it to them, the blue in the face, because I feel like they don't get it. It's like, my 21st birthday just passed this week while I was driving back and forth. And I was turning 21 and could care less about drinking any of that. My dad is the one that's like, all right, I'm taking you to the bowling alley when you get home. Like, you're gonna, drink a Patron and all that. I didn't get drunk or anything. I really don't like alcohol and just didn't really care about that. I feel like, and it's so mind-boggling to me that my dad doesn't have the understanding that you think he would, you know?
Yeah.
Because like he's dealt with shit his whole life. He didn't really get it together until I was like 4,
Right.
you know?
Right.
And he's always had a job, but it's like when you're doing, if you're partying all the time or whatever you're doing, it's like I'm glad you kept that job that whole time, but it's like you weren't getting a PhD anytime soon. You know what I mean? Like you weren't.
Yeah.
That is making it in your route, you know.
Yeah.
But I feel like I've been trying so hard, and there's so much that I like want to do. You know, as a 21-year-old, I don't want to go out and party. I don't want to do any of those things. I want to be able to record people and make money. I want to record my own things. I want to be able to go and do stand-up comedy myself. I want to keep doing this podcast consistently. You know, and it's like he looks at those like they're just pipe dreams. Like they're just, you know, like it's just stupid. Like you're just wasting your time. You know, and I'm like. These are maybe the only thing that's gonna keep me healthy minded and like content enough to like be able to get through all the shit I don't want to.
Yeah.
But it just gets looked at like I don't know, that I'm just focused on the wrong things. But it's like, but he gets worked up all day every day about the smallest thing at work or
And
like whatever.
That's where, you know, the proof is in the pudding. That idea of, because I've had people in my life go like, "Oh, you're wasting your time with this," and I go, "Look, I've seen the way you live your life." And you're right. Maybe I'm wrong, but I know you're definitely wrong. Like, I know you don't got it. So I'm looking at successful people, and I forget where I heard this or what, but like emulating successful people works. It's worked for me, and it's worked for successful people. The only people who say it doesn't work are unsuccessful people. And I'm like, yeah, you don't have money, you don't have stability, you don't have a family. I'm not listening to you, because that's not the life I want. And yeah, because again, I have friends that are like, yeah, different girl every night. I get blackout drunk, like woo. I'm like, yeah, but you still live with your mom. You got no family. You're 32 years old.
Yeah, it's like you're old
Working
enough
dead
now
end
that
jobs.
you can play it off like, oh, my mom lives with me. It's my childhood home.
Yeah. Like, you still got your Star Wars poster up there. Like, yeah, come on, man.
You got a twin bed and
Yeah,
shit.
like, who are you trying to trick?
You got your race car bed. What are you doing with it?
And so, you know, the things like the podcast or recording people, without those things, then life would be meaningless. Then what is the point? What am I working towards? Like
money and to take care of a baby.
Yeah,
That's and they are my main focuses.
Yeah.
Don't get me wrong.
Oh,
that's
for
like,
sure.
Of course I use it as like a driving force to keep doing what I'm doing,
Right,
but it's
what you're
not
doing
gonna
now.
keep
Yes.
my mental
Right.
stability.
Right.
You know, you just get overwhelmed.
Yeah.
And it's funny because when my girl got pregnant, because clearly we were not using protection, but when she hit puberty or whatever, she got her period, and then she had it from like 14 to 18 without like breaks. They would do like birth control to like try to stop her from having it, but it just messed her periods up, and she was just like, I don't know, that much period, you just think all your eggs are gone or whatever. So we didn't think we were gonna have a baby, and it did. It took a while to have a baby, but the whole thing is like my girl's always been like, I always wanted to have a baby, especially thinking I couldn't have one.
Right.
So our whole thing, and it's funny, I was just explaining this yesterday to somebody else, but the whole agreement with us, and it's funny because I'm such a naive kid to think that an agreement between me and her means anything when a baby exists. You know what I mean? So it's like okay, this is your dream, but I don't want to give up on my dream just because I'm having a baby. You know, like I will work twice as hard to make both of them work. And I work twice as hard to make both of them work. But once the baby's there and you're working 14 hours a day with driving and shit, the time's just not there. And then I just see myself transform of like getting as fat as I already am. I still can get fatter.
Oh yeah.
I can still get more and happy. I can still be, and it sucks because for like the 3 weeks or 4 weeks of doing this right before, we were getting it together. We were keeping up on all our chores, and it seems like small shit, but just like not having dirty clothes lie around is like a big thing because you're being conscious enough every day that you're keeping up on your daily tasks.
Yeah.
So you at least get a good enough feeling of like doing the next best thing.
Yeah.
Once the baby's there, it's like, 'cause the baby doesn't care if your clothes is clean. The baby doesn't care if you've eaten today. Like
It's like I don't know, like if your ship sank in the ocean and you're like, it's a storm and the waves are coming and you're barely keeping your head above water, and then somebody goes like, "Hey, have you done that laundry yet?" And you're like what? Like, bro, I'm trying to survive this moment. I'm trying to make it to my next breath of air. I don't have time, to. And so, I mean, that comes along. It does. And two, it's kind of like what we've done before. There are people who have it way worse than us that are working. They got these dudes out on in these farms in Africa where they basically tell them like, you didn't produce enough today, we're chopping off your hand. And they chop their hand or their foot, and they go, now you got to work tomorrow, and you better catch up, or we're gonna chop another piece of your body off. So like,
you have one less hand to do more work than yesterday.
Yes, one less hand to do more work, and and again, on one hand, it doesn't negate the suckiness.
No pun intended.
On one hand, it doesn't negate the suckiness for us driving 6 hours every day. That sucks. Being stuck in traffic sucks. It doesn't negate that, but it at least puts it in perspective. Like, no matter how bad this is, I got a girl to go home to. I got my baby's healthy, and I have a roof over my head. I'm able to be somewhere. Because there's just some dude right now working his ass off, and he sleeps in his car with his wife and kid. I mean, that's a common story in America right now.
A reality for sure.
Yeah.
And yeah, I definitely think, and it sucks because it's like and we've talked about it on the podcast before, but when you get to a point where you're like mentally and physically drained, it's like all you make is unconscious decisions.
Yes.
And it's like unconscious me is like the worst version of me.
Yes.
And it's hard because I keep shooting myself in the foot. But I would say it's that aspect right there of being grateful on top of like not making excuses, because it's that mixture of like being grateful of like I really do have everything I could have, and I was talking about what's called not working that time and like how it created some tension with my dad, and so now we're like paying rent and stuff, but I still can't complain because it's like you're not gonna get that cheaper rent, and it's like my dad's so cool that it's not even like he's taking it and like going to spend it. It's like he's just putting it away, and eventually if he gets tired of us, he's gonna be like, here's the money, get out,
Yeah.
So it's like there's a bunch of shit that and I was actually talking to my dad today about because he was like stressing about little shit at work, and I'm like, you can't, why do you let that not let you sleep at night, when it's like, for me, I'll get those feelings. Like it got passed down to me to just worry about shit I shouldn't worry about, or get stressed, or like work myself up, or be so like self-consumed that I can't focus on like all that I do have or my situation.
Yes.
And actually, when I hit you up, because I've been wanting to hit you up every week since my daughter was born, and it's just been hard with work. And I was making that excuse of like I'm tired of this and that. But I'm like, at the end of the day, if I'm willing to tell everybody how much I care about these passions, and I call them passions, and I'm so about it, then why won't I do anything to make it happen, And as soon as I made that realization of like, I gotta be grateful on top of I can't make excuses, I told myself, I was like, you gotta hit Sanchez up, and you gotta figure out a schedule. And so that's what I've been trying to do. And it's a slow process, but it's like Fridays, if you're able to, that's gonna be podcast day. I'm gonna try to because, most days you get off at like 3, right?
Yeah.
And I'm usually gonna get off early. Because I half days, working the 9s. So I'm going to have enough time before a podcast, because I actually still have to catch up on editing the last podcast we did. Okay. So I'm going to spend like, right before we do a podcast, I'm going to finish editing the podcast before. And Saturdays, just because any clients I've had, they've always wanted to do it on Saturdays. So I'm like, that's the day that I'm either going to record my own music, write my own music, or somebody's going to come over and pay me some money, and like I'll record their stuff. And then Sundays are open mics, and they're in the evening for stand-up comedy, but I'm like, you can't make an excuse of like, okay, it's the evening and I work early in the morning, I can't do it. It's like, sleep at a different time that day, if that's what I have to do. Because if I say I want it that much, I can't tell myself that, there's not a way to obtain it. And so that's kind of the schedule I want to do for that.
And I'll tell you, writing it down and seeing it physically in front of you helps a lot.
Yeah.
It helps. Rather than just going like, okay, I was going to do, okay, then I was going to just out, and you see the hours, and you go, okay, 8 to 12. I don't have a client, so 8 to 12, or more like this. 8 to 10, I'm doing 2 hours of recording. I'm going to put something down. I'm going to take a 1 hour break.
I don't know what's going on there.
It's all done.
I hope we got anything.
Yeah.
You need to go?
I got like 20 minutes.
Okay, cool. I went to check the time and shit. I don't even know. It's 5:40. Okay,
Yeah.
cool. Man, I hope we at least get an hour because we've been talking forever. But what was I talking? Oh yeah, so I was like, it's not gonna get easier, you know, to keep doing stand up or whatever. So I'm like, I just gotta like do it because I love making people laugh. It's one of the things I've always done in school, you know. And it's weird because you know we talked about my how I have stage fright. You didn't even know I did, but you noticed the shakiness when I did the poems and stuff. For some reason, I feel like with comedy, I'm not gonna have it the same because it's just like playful. Like I just enjoy, you know. Like the attention is different.
Yeah, I think it'll be different. It'll be more nervousness. Like I want to do good at this.
Yeah.
I want to be good at this.
Yeah.
That's natural for anybody. But I agree, it'll be different because. Yeah, it's more playful, it's more your element. It's
and when I'm making the music, I'm like, oh, I hope I don't mess up, like if I'm performing or doing anything,
Exactly.
I'm worried about that, versus with comedy, I'm like, I'm just trying to get a laugh. I've been trying to do that my whole life, you know what I mean? All right, so the bit I have is like, I open up with like, yeah, you know, I want to do comedy, and like, I told my dad like, oh, I want to be a comedian, I want to do stand-up, and he's like, what are you gonna make, like, fart and poop jokes? Like, what, you know what I mean? How are you gonna be a comedian, you know? And then, so I have a brilliant poop joke that's like kind of a story. So the aspect on it is like how dudes are like gross compared to women because we just like don't care.
Yeah.
And so it's like girls will go to like a nice clean school bathroom on a toilet and they're like, let me get 3 of those paper things laid down. I'm in this nasty porta potty. You know what I mean? I might give it a wipe down. Like, don't get me wrong, I'm not disgusting. But what's it called? So, and it was like my first day out in Winton, and this porta potty was just like disgusting. So the first time ever, I'm like, I don't think I want to sit down on this. You know what I mean? Like I might have to squat. Yeah, and I'm like, my stomach hurts. Like I have to, you know, like I'm not gonna be able to sit through this all day. You know?
Yeah. So a brief moment you contemplated holding it, and your stomach's like, don't even don't even play with this.
Seriously, yeah. And then it's like, you don't realize how much skill women have for their squat, you know what I mean? Like,
now you appreciate the struggle.
Like there's definitely control to that. And so, and it's like, how much leg strength do you have, lady? Because I'm like sitting there and I'm like big in the smallest porta potty. I'm like, can't even get around. I'm like, how do I get behind here? So it's like, I eventually give up and I'm like, gonna sit down. I had to do it. That's not the worst part. It's like I also don't got the aim. Worst scenario ever. I'm like in a porta potty where I'm like, this might be the most like, what can you even do? So I'm like, go for the toilet paper. I don't know where they get this toilet paper, but it's like
spiderwebs.
1 ply. It's 1 ply 10 grit toilet paper. You know what I mean? Like how they pull both of those off. What did I tell my girl? I was like, it's like they made it out of that like cotton stuff that you blow and make a wish.
Oh yeah. Dandelions or whatever.
That's what they make it out of. Like, So.
So long story short, my fingers smell like poop.
Yeah. No, and they have like a little water pump thing that has no water pressure. You gotta use your foot pump, and they have a big sign of like, don't drink or cook. Where I'm like, what do you guys put in this water? Like, am I dirtying my hands more? Like, I hope it's not the same blue water you put in the porta potties. Seriously. Or, and then another aspect of, because I was like, the poop joke, right? And I haven't figured any of this out. This is like me just talking it out. But I know the funny parts, you know? Like, I know the beats.
Yeah.
So, and then I was like, I have to have my fart joke. Well, the dude I'm working for now is like my dad's age and just does not care. He's just like my dad in the sense of like, I will crop dust you in any situation, shamelessly.
Right.
But it's different when you're pipe fitting.
Yeah.
You're on a lift with like 6 feet of room between you and him. You're 20 feet in the air.
Oh God, it's like
he's on the second rail because he can't really reach the top. You know what I mean? You're right behind him trying to like make sure he's good. And he's just like,
oh, it's like a whale mating.
Seriously.
Right.
And then and it's just like, we're on the roof, and this smell only rises.
Right.
You know what I mean? So it's just like, it's like hit the roof and then just disperse all around me. I'm like showering in it.
Oh my God.
Getting lightheaded, but you're like 20 feet in the air.
You're contemplating suicide. You're like, what if I just jumped?
And he's in control of the lift. Like, there's no, you can't escape.
You can't go anywhere. That's hilarious.
Next level.
I forget. I think it was Jerry Seinfeld who's like, comedians. It's like being a toddler. However many years you've been in comedy, that's your level of. So when you first start, poop and fart jokes are that's your bread and butter because you're 1 years old. You're a 1 year old comedian.
Yeah, seriously.
Like, and then you're about 21. That's when you start getting a little bit more mature. You're making family jokes, and I was like, oh, that's true. That's a good one.
Yeah, it is true. Yeah, and that's kind of what I'm figuring out with comedy is like, because at first I did it like I did everything else. So it's almost like how we were explaining the schedule for me of like, it started with, oh, I'm going to do music this day, but then it breaks down to like from 8 a.m. to 12 p.m.
Right.
So that's how I do it with like my music, poetry, comedy, whatever it is. So here would be my example, because I've been just figuring in my head. It's the same as comedy in the sense of I don't have it worked out. I just think about it and then I write the little ideas down.
Yeah.
So for the poem that I was going to do whenever you do the Def Jam, I'm going to name it Jeopardy. But the whole scheme of the poem is like, you know, what is pain? And then like, you know, everything is with it. So it's like off the Jeopardy game, but also like what Jeopardy means. You know?
Yeah.
So,
Dude, that's good.
yeah, I thought it was pretty good. I was like, they're going to like that once I figure it out. I also have
Coming
this.
up, it's going to be right after Thanksgiving break, so December.
Oh, really?
Yeah, that first week of December, because that's what takes us right into
I need to
the
get a new
break.
job soon. Because, that job. And I screwed myself so much, as like, there's no days off. And they don't even have like paid holidays or anything like that, or like you don't earn time working, so you're kind of screwed there. But yeah, so you know, that's kind of how my creative process is, whatever I'm doing. Or even when we did the podcasting, where it's like we're gonna riff on something for 20 minutes, but we might write down the main subject.
Right.
With comedy, or okay, so with like poems or music, the reason I get so nervous is because I start with that idea, but I hash it out, so it's like mathematical perfection. Like just every bar is where it needs to, it hits where it needs to hit. Like I even can I can feel which parts are gonna give somebody goosebumps. You know, like when you just calculate everything.
Yeah.
With the jokes, it's just like I know what I think's funny, and I amuse myself. And so when I just like can say something a couple times and it still makes me giggle the third time I tell someone, I'm like, okay, I know this is something that's gonna work.
Yeah.
So it's just like I get more comfortable with it because it's more of just like me being natural.
Right.
You know, like out of all these things, like music, I was the least natural ever. Never danced in my life, have no rhythm.
Right.
Somebody had to teach me like 1, 2, 3, 4. So, and then with the podcasting, it's awesome, but I'm like my dad kind of says, I'm not Joe Rogan. You know, this is going to be, this is just a work in progress. So you kind of need to at least get some type of platform, you know, before you're going to get places. But with comedy, I'm just like, I should have been doing this since I was in like high school, you know, because I've always loved comedy. And it's like, so I listen to podcasts, and the comedians will explain that, like, you know how you're saying with the Seinfeld was saying, you know, the first 3 years, whatever. A lot of people, comedians will say, the first 3 years, it does not matter your material because it's going to be garbage.
Right.
All you have to care about is being confident, you know? And something someone said, which is genius, is like, it's Anthony Jeselnik. You know who that is?
Heard that name.
He's like a Tosh in the sense of like he says that like ridiculous thing, but he's like so good at it that it's like you don't want to laugh at it, but it's just hilarious, you know? And what he talks about, he's like, I don't like the comedians. He's like, he was talking about quote unquote hack comedy.
Right.
And he said the hacks are the ones that go up on stage and say the thing that they think the audience will think is funny.
Right.
He's like, the non-hack comedians are the ones that are confident in saying stuff that amuses them and is working the whole time to convince the audience instead of the other way around.
Right.
And it just made me think back to all the times I got in trouble at school where I'm like, doing shit where I'm like, not even necessarily caring if people think it's funny. It just happened to make everyone erupt. Because I think it and it amuses me and I'm like, I have to say it.
Yeah.
So I don't know, I just kind of came to the conclusion, I'm like, definitely have to do this. I don't know why I'm being a scaredy cat about it.
Well, it's tough. And two, you know, when you're a little kid and you're like, oh, I want to be a doctor when I grow up. Oh, I want to be a lawyer when I grow up. Oh, I want to be a pony when I grow up. Whatever the thing is. Now it's rubber meets the road time. Mm-hmm. It's like, okay, I'm actually trying this, and that's scary. That's what's scary. It's like, what if I'm no good at this and I've been deluding myself? Or what if I am good at this and is this gonna be my life now?
Yeah.
Traveling around, because again, you got a girl, you got a baby. That's the number one thing comedians do is travel.
Yeah.
Constantly.
Definitely.
What if you're good at it? What if somebody goes, "Hey
Yeah.
man, we want you in San Francisco tomorrow, 3 shows." It's like, oh shit.
Well,
Okay.
and that's another thing that I was trying to explain to my dad of like, I think that my daughter is gonna grow up and respect me more and have so many better character traits and values if I'm able to chase my dream, accomplish anything, whether it's
Yeah.
minimal or not, because I'll have the conscious awareness enough to be able to like pass things down to her, even if like. So if I'm already on the road 5 days a week now, doing stuff I hate and being negative all the time, imagine if I was doing something I enjoyed, making real money, setting her actually up for the future instead of like just surviving at a different level.
Yeah.
That when I come home on the weekend, it's not just about me like decompressing and just trying not to like, jump off a bridge.
Right.
I'm like, okay, I actually want to use this time to like, spend all this family time and help
to
future.
look, as much, and your dad's done a lot, and he's a good father to you, but again, you're already ahead of the curve on him, because you're not going to spend the first 4 years of your life being crazy and being selfish and doing what you want to do in terms of addictions. So you're already ahead of the curve. You've already provided for your daughter way more than he was able to provide for you at that time. Now he got it together and fixed it, and that's great. But no matter what, you're already ahead of the curve. And that's something that's helped me a lot. Because again, man, I wish I could send my kids to Disneyland every summer. I wish I could take them to Sweden and fly around the world and have all this great stuff. But they didn't have to live what I lived, moving from apartment to apartment, from family member to family. They didn't have to pour cereal in the morning and have roaches, pick out the roaches, and then pour your milk and start eating. They didn't have to wake up with a rat on their face, right? So I've already provided more for them than I ever had. And so no matter my mistakes, and I've made mistakes, no matter my shortcomings and bad, business deals, I've lost money, I've made mistakes, I've provided for them way more than I was ever provided for. And everything has sort of made me a better person. I was able to get the mentality of going, okay, that was bad. That was not a good idea. That was terrible. So I'm going to learn from it. I'm going to try never to repeat it again. And now I have a valuable lesson to teach my son. So I can say, hey man, you got to be careful with this. I fell for this when I was your age. You got to be careful for this. And then none of it's wasted. And none of it's bad. And none of it's wrong. And like you said, nobody, except for the filthy rich, except for like Paris Hilton, nobody is set when they're 21 years old.
Seriously.
Everybody struggles. Everyone. So struggle and be happy, or struggle and be unhappy.
Yeah, and I think, and I guess I gotta articulate this better to my dad, because I really am like super grateful. And when I tell him, because this is the kind of stuff I care about, where I'm saying like, he was awesome and he's helped so much, but I still made a lot of the dumb mistakes that he could have kept me from doing. But it's about the way he gift wrapped it to me, to where it's like I couldn't listen to if I wanted to, because you're confrontational instead of giving advice. To where, because my dad has done so much to make sure I'm okay, that I don't have to worry about getting in the traps of addiction or doing any of these things, that the things I'm focusing on aren't just paying my bills, because I know that I have the drive and just the wherewithal of like, you got to do these things, So now I'm focusing on like, okay, because I say I'll tell him I just want to be happy, but what I really mean is like, I want to be content. I want to be able to thrive, because I have the social, like the conscious awareness to like do what I need to and continually growing. And so it's like I'm grateful for what he's done, and I know that because his dad actually helped him, the house we live in, he started paying for it when I was like 3 months old. And the crazy part is he paid $600 a month for the last 20 years that I was alive to pay off this house. While I was away in college, my dad gives his dad his last check to the house, and then his dad dies the next day.
Dang.
And it is super crazy, but it's like, I don't know, I just find it, I find it so epic, especially because we went to what was my grandpa, like 80 or 70, almost 80, you know?
Yeah.
And we went to, what is that called? It's like a funeral, but, or no.
Memorial service?
Yeah, maybe a memorial service because there was no casket or
Right.
anything like that. But we were at like a church, and
Mhm.
even the pastor was talking about how like the last months of his life, he's like never really was religious, and he's still not like, oh, I'm looking for God, but he's like
Right.
was changing or
Yeah.
just trying to like
Yeah.
change his ways and
Yeah.
do things from the very end, you know. And I do see how even that not only played a part in what, you know, I continue to do for schooling or whatever, but with my dad too, you know, because it's like he's been what I weigh now
Yeah.
forever since I've, you know, been alive, and now he weighs heavyweight in high school, like 230, you know.
Mhm.
So he lost like, you know, 70 pounds or something
Yeah.
like that. But you know, all these things he's always given me shit about, of like, you know, him paying for us to be able to drive when we're young, and then us getting our license at a young age, and all these things is like, the craziest part is like, yeah, that is crazy, but his dad did that for him in the 60s, you know what I mean, where it's like, that's unheard of, you know what I mean?
Right.
And then he just like, because, you know, he was out of the house at 18 or whatever, but it's because he wanted to do nothing that
Right.
his parents wanted him to do,
Right,
and he
right.
didn't care about what he should have been caring
Right.
about. And so, yeah, I mean, it's just another aspect of me just like being mind blown, because I have had so many conversations with my dad that I have like a deep understanding of like what he's gone through, how my grandpa has always been, and like
Yeah.
that whole situation where I'm like, how do you not have more understanding to this?
Yeah.
You know, like,
And I think it's fear. I think he's afraid, and it's like my mom's a terrible driver. Love her to death. Beautiful woman, saint of a human being. Terrible driver. But when she's the passenger, she's like, be careful with that. Watch out for this. Look out for that. You're too close to him. Speed up. They're too close to us. And I'm like, Mom, you're a terrible driver. You can't be giving advice. But the minute she's the passenger, she's like, you know, like, and so that's kind of the thing. It's her fear. She's afraid for me because she loves me. And so the things she doesn't do for herself, she's afraid and telling me. And it's sort of, and I have to be like, close your eyes, Mom. Just close your eyes. We're going to arrive at the place in 20 minutes. I can't have you see what's going on because you're freaking out and it's making me nervous.
Yeah, you're making it worse by like,
Close your eyes. So literally when I drive with my mom, this is a real life story, I have to have her close her eyes. Because
you gotta make her sunglasses that
yeah,
are just blacked out.
Blacked
You're
out,
like,
yeah.
Where these?
I just tell her, I go, you gotta close your eyes, Mom. You're doing it again. And she's like, oh, you're right. And she's got a purse in her lap. And,
That's hilarious.
and that's literally what our relationship has to be in the car in order to travel anywhere together.
That's awesome.
And that sounds odd and weird,
No,
but
it's
it's
not
what
odd.
works. And I wish she could have her eyes open, and I wish that was our type. But look, it's one of those things where I could keep wishing she would change, or I got to come up with a different solution. I gotta.
Yeah, my parents won't drive with me. That's just
Yeah.
like a. But so you remember a while back I tagged you in this weird ass video of these like cultish people with the weird stuff.
yeah.
Well, there's a guy that he's not really involved with that, but I went down the rabbit hole and found this dude, and he's supposedly a channeler.
Okay.
So what is that, clairvoyant or something
Sure.
like that? But basically, he hears through his third eye like these other people, and he does this weird thing where when he's in the middle of it, he like whispers to himself. He hears this thing, then he says it out loud, and it's like it's kind of like eerie. But he has these jewels where it's like, without believing in the mumbo jumbo, he's still like blowing my mind with certain shit of like talking about how fear just produces more fear.
Mhm.
But then he brought up things like greed and anger, and I wouldn't even say it's him because it's so weird. And he used to be it was either a Harvard professor or something like that, and then he finally just gave up on it and just kept doing this thing. But I mean, he had a full career in it, and he was afraid of doing this thing because he felt like it was like made him look like a weirdo. It does,
Yeah.
But what's it called? Just the nugget of like how fear creates more fear, and the aspects of like greed or anger, or like greed in the sense of like, well, are you greedy with money? Okay, it's a fear of not having enough
Right.
that feeds you to just keep doing the
fear
same
of running
thing.
out,
Yep.
fear of not being able to provide what you think you should provide. Yeah.
Yep. You know, anger or jealousy. I mean, it's a lot of the same thing, and it's all under that thing of fear. And the reason I like him is because he's not one of those people that it's like, you gotta check your ego at the door. Like, you know? Yeah, so that was a weird ass tangent anyways. But the main thing of it was just the how fear creates more fear, and that there's a lot of aspects that people don't even look at as fear, but it's totally fear.
Yeah. And I, in terms of your personal thing that's going on with your dad, with this little bit of time we have, and he's about the doer and not the sayer. That you broach the subject and you're going, look, I don't think I can keep this job. I think it's going to kill me. But I won't quit until I have 2 jobs secured that make the same amount of money, or 1 job that does the same.
Mm-hmm.
Again, minus the travel,
Yeah.
500. So if I can make 600 a week, then I'm out of that one. And I get the 401k stuff, and I get that you're afraid of. That's something that's on me. You'll be long gone, so that's on me. And maybe I'll be old and poor, and I'll be like, dang, my dad was right. But I'm gonna make this. So what do I, how do we start to do this? How do we start to figure this out? Because it's killing me. It's killing me. And I get it. And it's not about lack of sucking it up or lack of, I'm willing to work. I'm doing it. I'm willing to do it. It's that it's like running the wrong direction from where you want to go. Like, I'm willing to hustle. But right now, I'm actually heading the wrong way from where I want to go. So I want to be able to, I'm asking for permission to change direction, to turn around and run the right way. And
Yeah, and that's the thing about it is, like, he thinks that I'm ungrateful in the aspect of, like, really I was because I was working this job for this racist dude making minimum wage, and I just needed something real, so I was so desperate that I'm like, they kind of explain from the gate, like, this is a huge commitment, that all these things, but I'm like, yeah, whatever, sign here, like, you know what I mean, like, because I'm like, I need the money.
Yeah.
But now that I'm in this situation, I'm not spitting in it of like, oh, well, it's not worth the money. It's like, right now, it's my only option. But yeah, I really just need to kick it into high gear and figure out what I'm going to do. Yep, I guess that's the end of the podcast. I don't want to take too much of your time.
No, man.
This whole podcast was not, we didn't have,
Nothing.
it might not have been,
Planned.
it might not have been as good or scripted as the other ones.
But I think you needed this, man. More than anything, you needed to be even being able to, like we said, decompress and just talk.
Seriously.
And get some perspective. And I think a lot of people need that. I don't think our story is unique. I don't think what we struggle with is just us. I think there's a lot of young kids out there right now. Whether it's the kid who's smoking pot and living in his, and there's nothing against smoking pot, but who's doing
No, I
nothing
hear
and
what
just
you're saying, yeah.
burning time.
Yeah.
Or the kid who's right now hustling, scraping gum at a comedy club and going, am I making the right choice? Yeah, you are. If that's your dream, if that's what you want, yes, you are making the right choice. That's okay. Like, even if you had all the money in the world, it's not going to give you back time. It's not going to. Time is the most valuable thing. That's why we give money. That's why they go, hey, come do this job, and here's money for that time you spent. Because
You're not getting that back.
you're not getting it back. Those days and hours are
Seriously.
gone.
All right. Regardless of anything else, it was a good one for me.
It's just growing. It's just growing.